Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Disney Resorts Podcast. My name's Kenny Hayes, and I am joined alongside, as always, by the one, the only, Walt Ramirez.
Hey, everybody. How you doing?
We're doing good, Walt. So, folks, in this week's episode, we have a couple good topics for you. First, we're going to add of the DVC world, some pretty significant change that Disney has made effective July 12th, and we'll get into that shortly. We're then going to go into a topic of what Walter and I think has changed at Walt Disney World over the past 2 years. We then have two dining reviews, one of them at Le Cellier, located at the Canadian Pavilion over at EPCOT. And our second is a breakfast review over at the Cape May Cafe, located over at the Beach Club. And then we will wrap up, if we have time, with what we currently miss at Walt Disney World. So, Walt, actually today of taping, DVC announced bright and early, first thing in the morning, that after 2+ years since the pandemic started, you are now allowed to borrow up to 100% of the next year's allotment of points. And you know as well as I know that since the pandemic, and with travel, especially overseas, the people who had DVC, they were greatly affected because they couldn't use the points. And people like us back in the States, we weren't allowed to use our points for nearly 4 months. So effective today, that ruling of the 50% is now gone. So DVC members like myself rejoice because I can borrow the points that I pay so much for. The only bad, you're free. DVC is free. The only bad thing, and I was reading an article about this, is that I have noticed also in our last several trips, it's been pretty easy to book not at your home resort well past the 7th month mark. And what the article was stating is now that DVC has opened it back up to everyone to borrow 100% of your points for the following year, I tend to agree with it. I think the next 6 months, the rest of this year, I think is going to get tight, and it's going to get tight fast because people are still pent up. They want to get out. They want to use their points, and now they have a whole lot more points. And with people becoming more, how would you say it, more comfortable traveling again, I think you would agree. I think there is going to be an influx on the DVC side for the remainder of the year. What do you think about that?
I think people are traveling more now, but I don't know necessarily if the international flights are coming in like they were before, and I don't have any percentages of how many people own DVC outside of the United States, if that would even make a difference. But as far as being able to make reservations, I don't know necessarily if now that you're able to borrow again, if things might get a little bit tougher for you down the road. I've noticed that there's a lot of people that have sold off, and there's a lot of available units on the secondary market.
True.
That could be another reason why Disney decided that they were going to alleviate that borrowing. I think they realized there are a lot of people that were unhappy about it, and maybe this pushed them into going back to the way it used to be. I know that was one of my sticking points, one of the reasons why I sold for a second time this last time around, because it got too frustrating to not be able to get the rooms I wanted when I wanted them, and then not being able to borrow the points I needed to go on a particular vacation when I could just go on the website and pay for the room in cash, which is what I've been doing. But don't want to go off on that tangent because that's a whole other show. But to answer your question, I don't know if it necessarily will get tougher, because there is still a lot of quote unquote real estate out there available on the secondary market. So unless people are going to start buying up a lot of the timeshares again that are out there. And with interest rates going up, I don't know if it's necessarily that's going to happen. So,
I think Disney had no choice. Like we talked about it prior to taping, that it's been right around 27 months, and the DVC world has not been happy. And I think in the beginning, everyone understood why they did it. There was no travel. The Disney World was completely locked down. It was closed for 4 months. So we understood. However, they have never been good at communication. They come out at the last minute, they make a decision, and there's no follow-up, there's no information, there's no nothing. It's like, this is what we're doing, and you're going to live with it. But I think you're right. I think the real estate has a lot to do with it, because a lot of the articles I watch, other shows I watch on YouTube, it's becoming a lot more. There's a lot of people selling, and there's more sellers out there right now than buyers. So in the grand scheme of real estate for DVC, it's slowly trending back, I think, in my opinion, to more of a buyer's market again, where you have a little bit of leverage to negotiate, because people, for whatever reason, whether it's the politics with Disney, which we're not going to get into, but politics in Disney, you have people who are disgruntled with the way that Disney's been operating, park reservation systems, which we're going to get into shortly. A lot of the changes that people are not happy with, and all the costs going up. And just like you said, Walt, yourself, one of the big reasons with DVC was always being allowed to borrow that next year's bank to get a couple trips a year out of it. And when you took that away, and with everything else compounding now and the economy that we're in, I think they had no choice but to tell its existing members, hey, we're going to give this perk back to you. Because I remember watching a show about DVC on another site, and when DVC first opened, it was only borrowing of 50%. So the actual borrowing that we've lived by for the last 2 years was the original plan for DVC. And then I don't have the exact year. Then years later, they changed their policy to where you could borrow your full allotment for the following year. But yeah, I as a DVC member, a current DVC member, I am happy with that. I know my wife is very happy with that, because one of the things that, we travel several times a year. Some days we only go for 3-4 days. Some day it's a 5 to 7 day. It all depends on our scheduling. But, like she said, the more and more they took away, and they raised prices, and they wanted more from you, and you were getting less, it was really a drag. So this is something, whether I think they had no choice. I don't think it was out of the kindness of their heart. I think they had no choice to do it, to try and calm the DVC world and try to get everything back under control. We'll see in the future to see how it works. I know I am personally happy, but I want to see more out of them. But that's for another show and another day.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the overall experience. If you really look at it, I think that has, I think, factored into the way people have reacted in the DVC world, and part of the reason why maybe some of those folks are selling, because when you put it all together and you see the entirety of everything that has happened over the last 2-3 years, even if you go back before the pandemic, I mean, the pandemic is just right now just a timeline of when things kind of changed, but now things are kind of changing back. But even before then, you started to see, and I noticed the difference in the overall service, and it started to kind of slowly bleed out to a point where now with the pandemic and post-pandemic, you really haven't seen a return to the quality of the service that you were getting before. That epic
Agreed.
Disney quality service that I got back in early 2000s that I fell in love with, and one of the reasons why I bought into DVC originally was because of that reason, because of the entirety of the experience. It wasn't just one particular thing, it was everything.
Mm-hmm.
And now you've seen that erode little by little to a point where we grew to accept it because of the pandemic, and that became the excuse that it's because of the pandemic. And now we've worked our way up past most of it, and now you're still not seeing. You're starting to see, little things come back. Like you're starting to see shows come back, and you're starting to see character experiences come back, and those sort of things. But you're not seeing from a DVC standpoint. And I can't speak on it because I'm not a DVC member anymore, so I don't want to speak out of turn. You can speak to this better than I can. And you did mention that there has been a lack of communication. When you said that, why do you feel that way? Is it direct communication with you as a property owner, or let me know about that, because I've been out of the loop for over a year, so I can't speak on it.
Well, of course, when the pandemic first happened, nobody knew what to do. So it was shut everything down and we'll figure it out. But as the weeks went by, and then it turned into a month, 2 months, and months. And as DVC owners, we're sitting back and you're getting no communication from DVC itself, saying like, okay, you've been closed for how many months? What are you going to do with these points? If I live somewhere and I can't travel to the United States right now, but I have all these points, what am I going to do with them? I have too much. I have ones from years past that I have to use. Otherwise, I'm going to lose them, because I can't bank them again. There was just there was very poor communication from DVC. And then they just came out and they were like, well, you can only borrow up to half of what you had for the foreseeable future because of the travel restrictions. And then never talked about it again until now. I mean, you're talking 2+ years into this, and I get an email at, I don't know, I think it was 6:30 this morning, but my wife sent me a text on my way to work, of the screenshot of the email, and then I logged in once I got to where I was going, and I was able to see it, and I was like, oh wow. But it was literally just an email like, hey, by the way, we're going back to normal.
And was the email from your original agent, or was it just a generic Disney email?
No, it was just a generic Disney email. I tell you, I'm on three agents through DVC. The original lady who I bought my points with about 2 years ago, it was right before the pandemic. I received an email, actually a call while I was in EPCOT. So I thought they were stalking me. And I answered the phone. They're like, hi, I'm so-and-so from Disney Vacation Club. And they're like, how are you today? And I was like, well, I'm good. And they're like, oh, do you have a few minutes? And I was like, well, I'm actually in Disney. I'm actually in EPCOT right now. And they were like, oh, wow, that's fantastic. But they were calling to inform me that my rep, agent, whatever you would like to call them, left the company, and they put me into another person. Never heard from that person. I had a question regarding Moonlight Magic, because we were still new members then, and this Moonlight Magic came out and we were interested in it, but I wasn't sure. I had some questions about it, so I reached out to the new agent that Disney assigned me, Disney Vacation Club assigned me. Never answered me, never. So then after about 4 or 5 days, I sent a follow-up email. They never answered me again. So we took a trip. That was that March of, I want to say 2019. And we were at the Polynesian. I set up, we were thinking about adding on more points, because the add-on itis is real. Because when we bought our initial points, we're like, okay, this will be enough. We'll do studios and we'll be fine. And we turned out very quickly, it was like, oh, wow, I got to get more. So we met with one of the reps this time at the Polynesian. They have a site there. They took us into one of the longhouses. That's where they had their offices set up. And we ended up purchasing another direct contract with DVC at that time. And the agent was very good.
So your second contract was not a resale; it was direct contract.
No, it was a direct contract.
Okay.
And they were also.
So you still were assigned an agent.
Yes. So and what I said to the gentleman is that I have an agent. I can't remember his name right now. And I said I've tried to communicate with this individual several times. I said my original agent left the company. I said, can I make you my agent? Because I felt very comfortable with him. And he was like, absolutely. He goes, we could do that. So by the time I signed my contract, got all the paperwork, and at that time he still got the backpack. I got my however many $1,000 backpack. They switched me over to him. But I'm going to say even now, granted, if I emailed him, he would answer me. But there's never a follow-up with your DVC agent ever. Not just like that, even once a year, like, hey, how you doing? How's everything? Is there anything you need from us? Is there anything I could do for you? Are you interested in buying more points? It's just the generic emails that's like, hey, we have Riviera right now at 25% off. Something on the lines of that. Nothing with any kind of substance behind it other than, hey, we have a deal.
So during the pandemic, there was no communication at all from anyone with you?
Nope. None whatsoever.
Wow.
None. So that's in DVC has definitely taken a hit with that. If you look on whether you're on pages on Facebook, other social media outlets, YouTube, they get destroyed on their communication. However, I will say, we bought the third. We actually have 3 contracts. I bought a small third contract. Actually, right out. I think it was in 2020. I got a great deal on a Saratoga, and my agent through the company I used is a great guy. He emails me several times a year. He asks how I'm doing. I get birthday emails. Just every couple months, he just emails, checks in. Okay, he's a salesman. I get it. But so is Disney. Disney's a Fortune 500 company, and they don't follow up. But this gentleman follows up. You get emails at during the holidays. I get an email from him. He attaches some pictures with his family. It's no complaints with him whatsoever. And I had someone reach out to me not too long ago interested in resale. And I said, reach out to this guy. He's excellent. I've had no trouble with him whatsoever. Anytime I've ever had even a question, I can email him and I get an answer.
That was not me.
No, that was not. Yeah, but it was. They did a very good job. It was
not me.
No. So yeah. So the lack of communication.
What you're
was
describing
bad.
is you're describing somebody who's conducting business the way business is supposed to be conducted. Unlike
Correct.
DVC, where once you sign the contract, they forget about you. Now,
Correct.
that's nothing new to DVC, because I can speak on that when I purchased my original contract in 2001, my agent only would contact me once a year, and usually it was just to ask me if I wanted to add on points, or if he knew if I was in Disney, he would always try to get me to go over to Saratoga to pitch me the latest, hotel that was being built or the latest points that were. So that's nothing new as far as the lack of communication. It's just that you would think that during a pandemic that they would want to reach out to their customer base, stay in contact with them, and say, is there anything I could do for you? Maybe even try to pitch you on something. I mean, you would think that if business was bad, they would want you to maybe buy something else.
Agreed.
So, I really, for me personally, this last time I sold, I just felt like there was a disengagement of the consumer and Disney itself.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt like they've taken so much for granted, and they still continue to take things for granted. And I just think that they've forgotten that folks who lay out 15, 20, 25, 30 grand in some cases
Mm-hmm.
for basically
A
what
vacation.
amounts to basically air, because you're just buying a piece of air. You've taken that for granted, because those folks do spend quite a bit of money, and they keep coming back year after year after year. And not only that, but they also bring their family back. So it becomes a legacy where you have a lifetime customer. And as a former small business owner, I could tell you that I loved my daily customers to death, because I knew they were going to come back day after day after day, year after year.
And spend
you could
money.
count on them to pay the bills.
Mm-hmm.
And they've brought in so much money with everything else, with Disney Plus, that I think the technology side of it has been a register that they've been ringing for so much now, that they really have forgotten the small business side. Not that small business is not a small business, but just that connection between the customer and the consumer.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
DVC, I think it's completely gone off the rails. And I know we talked about this earlier before we started taping. My last vacation, one of the things that I felt that really left a really bad taste in my mouth was that, on top of everything that we have always had to plan in the past, which has always been a huge critique of Disney vacations, and people that aren't Disney fans who love to mock those of us who still like Disney. Oh, there's too much planning. I don't want to have to plan my meals out 6 months in advance, and, what rides I'm going on and all of that sort of thing that we've all heard. Now it's like on steroids, because now it's getting up at 7 a.m. It's trying to get in a queue for a ride, and, lightning lane, and planning. And now if you plan a meal and your lightning lane now bleeds into your meal time, now that's costing you an extra $10, because now you might not be able to go.
Mm-hmm.
Or now you're sitting on the phone. I just saw an article online, and somebody really made a great point. They were in Disney recently, and everyone's got their head buried in their phones. It's basically, you just walk around staring at your phone the whole time, because you have to constantly be updating everything to see what rides are available, what's my next lightning lane, what's where are the crowd flows within the parks, where
Mm-hmm.
can I go next. It's completely out of control. I mean, I know that you have a trip planned in August, and it's going to be more of a relaxation trip.
Yep.
I know that you experienced some of those issues back in April when you and I went. I mean, how do you feel about that? I mean, would you agree that you think that this is completely out of control?
I couldn't agree more. And like we were talking pre-taping tonight, like what exactly changed? And yes, it revolves around the pandemic, but it's not about the pandemic. It's about what Disney has always wanted to do. And like you said when we were talking before the show, how is it that Disney is quote unquote at a smaller capacity than it was in March of 2020? Yet, and you have a Genie Plus system now, and you have the free Genie, which tells you how to maneuver around the park, and like you said, what the flow is. Hey, Haunted Mansion's low right now, so let's send people over there. Winnie the Pooh right now is low, so make your way over there. And it's more, even though the crowds are quote unquote less, like you said, Walt, every ride is well over 45 minutes, an hour plus every ride. So now you're bogged down. If you didn't get the lightning lanes you wanted, if you didn't spend how many dollars a day for Genie Plus, then you have to figure out a park reservation. You have to make sure you get that park. And like you said, if I pick Magic Kingdom that day and I get my park reservation, however, say I overslept, say I did get up at 6:30 and I had bad internet, say my phone jumped onto Disney Wi-Fi and I wasn't able to get the rides that my family wanted, my little kids wanted, guess what would happen? Now you're standing in those lines for hours. And you, like you said, if you're not a pass holder, you paid how much a day to just enter that park before Genie Plus, before Lightning Lane, and you're now waiting online. And the lines,
and you're a prisoner to that park.
And you're a prisoner to that park until at least 2:00. And like you also said before, when we started before taping, is that what happens if you do get that lightning lane, but that lightning lane's not till 3-4 o'clock? Well, you're not going to leave Magic, especially you're not going to leave Magic Kingdom or any other park at 2:00 to park hop because you got to come back. So, like you said, and I think Genie Plus has a lot to do with the problems with the crowds and the lines for the attractions, because I don't know if people are confused or if people aren't getting on and they're like, wow, I couldn't get a lightning lane for, Haunted Mansion, or I couldn't get so now we're waiting in line. And even if they're at 75% capacity, that's still tens of thousands of people. And what most of the shows now are coming back, because we talked about that too. When you had pre-pandemic and you were at full capacity and you were also at full workforce, those rides, those shows, where the whole intent of those shows was to eat up crowd control. A show was 15 minutes, a show was 18 minutes, a show was 20 minutes. It allowed to absorb the crowd. People had their fast passes. People also decided to wait in line for the fast passes they couldn't get. And, you had the restaurants that were able to be fully open, and that ate up space. It took people from waiting in line. But I don't, like you and I were talking about, I can't put an exact of what's wrong, because I think they have to get rid of this Genie Plus system. I think they have to go. Listen, I'll pay for it. Let me have my 60-day window. Let me pay for my 3 rides up front. You get your money. You're happy. And it just seemed to be a whole heck of a lot smoother. Like this, like you said, we're the complete opposite when it comes to I like to sleep in at home, but when I go to Disney, it's weird. I'm up 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. I have a cup of coffee and I'm sitting on the balcony. At home, I'm still rolling over. That's just how I am there. But for other people like you like to sleep in a little more and then do a full day at the park and try to get on as many attractions as possible. And it was so much easier with the old system, at least in my mind. I think you agree.
And the old system also, the old system, again, you brought up the capacity issues. I don't know if I necessarily believe the numbers that they're putting out there, whether it's, pick a number, whether it's 60%, 65, 70, 75. It definitely, as we discussed, it has to be at a certain cap because they don't have the staffing for a maxed out park. So they can't ever have a completely maxed out park the way they used to in the past, because they just haven't brought people back and they're trying to pinch pennies and not hire as many people. I let's just assume that it's at 60 or 65%. We should not be seeing the lines and the wait times that we're seeing now. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And like we talked about, where did this change? Because you shouldn't have to wait 3 hours or more to just ride 2 or 3 rides. Mm-hmm. I did a rope drop at Hollywood Studios back in April, and I was there at 7:30 in the morning. The park, they let you in, and the rides actually started operating before 8 o'clock. I was able to get on Mickey's Runaway Railway, and then went over to Slinky, Toy Story Mania, and Saucers, and did those 4 by I think it was maybe 9 o'clock in the morning. So that would have been an impossibility going in there at, say, 10, 11, or noon. You would be waiting an hour plus on all of those rides easily. Maybe not Saucers, maybe 45 minutes on Saucers, but you would definitely be waiting over an hour on Slinky. You would wait probably 40 to 45 minutes on Toy Story, and you would definitely be waiting 60 plus minutes, sometimes 75 minutes on Mickey's Runaway Railway. Mm-hmm. So even if you factor in the Lightning Lane, okay, before there were fast passes. So what's the difference? You know what I mean? It doesn't make to me. It just does not make sense as to why the ride experience has gotten so bad, and I just can't put my finger on it. I've racked my brain thinking about it. We've talked about it, and it's gotten worse and worse and worse. And it's not to the people who are there, that the cast members are awesome. Most of them. I mean, there's a few bad apples in there that I've come across, but for the most part, most of the people there are really good and working hard. But it's just not. I just don't understand. Is it the genie? Is Genie really screwing everything up? I don't know. I mean, I can't put my finger on it. I get very frustrated because, as we discussed, I am not renewing my annual pass.
I was going to ask you that.
And I've done the math on it, and it just doesn't add up for me. Now it's called the Sorcerer Pass or whatever. Now I'm not getting the DVC discount that you are getting because you're a DVC member. So mine is like around, I think, $1,100 per person plus tax, which comes out to like around $1,200 total. So for my wife and I, you're looking at $2,400 to be an annual pass holder. Our current vacation plans are to try to stay away from the parks as much as possible because we just don't feel like we're getting the value for the cost, and the experience has gotten so bad that it's just with the crowding and the heat and the lack of being able to get on the rides that we like. We're happy if we go for a 4 or 5 day trip. We're happy to just do a 2-day hopper pass. I priced it out, a 2-day hopper pass. We could go 4 trips to Disney with a 2-day hopper pass, 4 separate trips, obviously, where it would still run me about the same amount as the annual pass for the $2,400.
And like you said, go ahead.
No, I'm not going to go 4 times. So I'm still saving money, and I'm not I'm not giving Disney a $2,400 loan for the entire year. And it's just, to me, again, this is just me personally. Other people have different ways of vacationing, and they have larger families, and it might make sense for them to do that. That's all well and good. But for my wife and I, we're just a couple of 2, and we don't, again, this is talking back again to what we talked about earlier, which is what's the main reason why I'm doing this? It's not because I don't like Disney. It's because of the experience. The experience has gotten so bad that I've had to reduce what I do in the parks because it's just not fun anymore. Now, would I like to go back to the old way of the way things used to be? Absolutely. I would love to go back to fast passes and extra magic hours and all of those things. Now, that's another thing that for me is a head scratcher, because Disney is such a becomes so money hungry that it's boggling my mind that they haven't been able to reinstate extra magic hours with a price tag attached to it. Now, I was just there at the Yacht and Beach Club, as we've talked about in previous shows, and then Beach Club before that. And both times I was able to get extra magic hours because I was staying at those deluxe resorts, which was phenomenal, because we would show up at 9 o'clock for the 2-hour extra magic hours, and we would get a bunch of things done. I mean, it was amazing how much you got done in that 2-hour span. In April when we went, I was able to get at Hollywood Studios, because that was the late night. I was able to get every single major attraction done, including Rise of the Resistance, which I could have, if I wanted to, I could have done it twice. We got Toy Story in, we got Slinky in, we got Mickey's Runaway Railway, and if we really wanted to huff over to Rock and Roller Coaster, we could have got that and Tower Terror in. So Think about that in that 2-hour time span, how much we could have gotten done. That's how it used to be, because they used to be. And again, this goes as we, as you put this together, you can see why things have changed for me personally as much as they have, because you joke around and say, well, Walt likes to, doesn't like to get up early. Well, the reason I don't like to get up early was because I used to be a late night person at Disney. I used to enjoy staying at Magic Kingdom till 2 a.m. There was one trip many years ago where we flew in early afternoon to Disney, checked in. I had worked that day and had not slept, and I did not sleep because I was literally up for 24 hours, because Magic Kingdom that night was open till 3 a.m. Imagine that, 3 a.m. Now it's, by 9 o'clock, it's lights out. You know what I mean? So now it's like, to me, it's like Grandpa Disney now, because it's, you're in bed by 9 o'clock. It's, it really is. It's I feel like I'm a senior and I haven't gotten there yet, even though I'm getting close, but it's sad, because you used to be able to enjoy Disney well into the evening hours, where it was much less crowded, and it was just a fun experience. I remember sitting at the bakery, at the ice cream shop on Main Street, and watching the fireworks and having ice cream, or even just sitting there and just taking in Magic Kingdom at night. And looking at the castle, and now you're just, it's like, okay, time to go. Let's get out of here. It's just you just don't have the same experience. And I know that a lot of people will say, well, you got, things change. They do, but customer service shouldn't change. And to me, the customer service level at Disney, and looking out for the consumer, the people who, the annual pass holders, that's all gone away. One question I have for you, which we've talked about a couple of times in the past, do you think that Disney has gone away from the middle class consumer and is starting to cater much more towards the upper echelon consumer, because they feel that those people will drop, even though they may come less times a year, they're going to drop a lot more money at Disney than the average Joe will?
Well, I absolutely 100% agree, because you and I have had these conversations, and even in our last episode when we talked about them passing on the Bright Line train station at Disney Springs, and I said briefly, Disney is taking this opportunity over the last 2 years to make themselves, in my opinion, and I think you agree, to become as exclusive as possible, which means, like you just said, they're going to drive out the middle class eventually. Eventually, it's going to be hard for someone like you or me to go as much as we like to, because we generally go 3 times a year. Every couple months, we're on a plane and we go for, 4 or 5 days, even longer. And it's slowly getting to a point where you got to look at it and say, well, especially in the economy that we're in now, and with the services they've cut back, do I put out even more money to get less? Unless I pay Genie Plus, unless I pay Lightning Lane, unless I pay for $600 a night to stay at Yacht Club so I can get the extra magic that I used to get for free, even if I was staying at Art of Animation, All Stars, Pop Century, and like I said to you in episodes past, people who have money still choose to stay at Pop Century, still choose to stay at Art of Animation. And it's not because they can't afford Grand Floridian. They can't afford Bay Lake Tower, which is a stone throw away from Magic Kingdom. It's because they look at the room, the resort, as nothing more than what they sleep in. So why spend $600-700 a night when I could go to Pop Century and pay $2 a night and get the same experience? Now, some people can't afford it. Some people got to stay at the All Stars because they're younger, they have a lot of children. It takes think about how much it costs just to fly a family of 4 down there now. Not to mention on top of
Absolutely.
how much even All Stars or Pop Century are going for Art of Animation. But I have family members who can well afford to stay at any one of the deluxe resorts. Yet they took trips recently and they stayed over at Pop Century. Why? Because they were going to be out all day. They were going to be in the parks. They didn't need a kitchen. They didn't need that extra space. But now, because, someone who can't afford it chooses to stay at a value or a moderate resort on property, now gets punished because you can't go into the parks for the extra magic of 2 hours, where it used to be open to everyone as long as you were staying at a Disney resort. And I understand, like you said, that they've cut services. All the people have not come back. Part of that is Disney's doing to just, we're going to decrease capacity, which means we have to employ less people, which means we're charging you more, and ultimately they make more money. But I am 100% convinced that they are doing everything in their power to make it as exclusive as possible. Like right now, it's Disney has Club 33. Spend $33,000 initially, and you get into the club, and then it's tens of thousands of dollars a year after that to renew. Okay, that's exclusive. So if you have that money and you choose to do that, you get all of what comes with Club 33. However, what annoys me, and I know it's like beating a dead horse at times, everything, Walt, that we are talking about was free. Everything. Yes. And I understand the world has changed. Economics change. But there's room to wiggle. You could sit back and say, hey, guys, unfortunately, this is what's transpired over the last 2 years. We're still going to offer it, but there's going to be a fee. But it's open to everybody. Now you're forcing people, if they want to go into the parks late, to go to Yacht Club, to go to Beach Club, to go to Saratoga, to go to Grand Floridian, so they can get into the park late instead of staying at Pop Century or Art of Animation. It drives me nuts, and I am convinced, and we are guilty of it, that as long as we continue to do it, and the problem is they know they have us because of our love for what Disney was and what Disney still offers, because there is good. There's a lot of good there. That's why we continue to go back. But yeah, it just really gets under my skin that so much of what they offered for free now all comes with a fee. Well, like you said, Walt, you're not even renewing your annual pass, because when you do the math, and it's not even, you never said you were cutting back on how much you were going. You just said, I'm doing the math. And, you know, with everything so messed up, whether it's Genie Plus, whether it's the park reservation system, whether it's less capacity, the parks are not as smooth right now to get on rides. You're a big attraction guy. So that's one of your things of going down there. So when you look at it and you go, well, like we talked pre-show, I'm going to go down for 4 days. Well, you know what? I'm only going to get a 2-day hopper. I'm going to do my parks for 2 days, and whatever I could get in, I get in, and then I'm going to sit by the pool for 2 days. That's it. Yeah. And they're losing out. So,
and like you said, it's not because of me not wanting to buy the annual pass. It's just that I don't see the value in it anymore for me personally, because I just like you said, I like to go to the parks. I like the rides, but it's so frustrating that to me it's not worth it. If I'm going to be in Disney for 4 or 5 days and I'm going to be frustrated every single one of those days because I didn't get on a ride or I got into a park that was super annoying because it was, you know, crowded and I couldn't do what I wanted to do. Now a lot of people are going to say, well, that was like that in the past. Yes and no, it was, but you also had the freedom of just getting in your, you know, leaving that park and going somewhere else.
Yes.
Because that was what the park hopper was all about. I could knock out all 4 parks in one day, and I've done it before. Now you can't do that because you can't hop until 2 o'clock. And by that time, I mean, unless you really are like a speed demon, you're not going to be able to get all 4 parks in one day. So they've the good old constrained you in that sense. So everything, like you said, they've put up roadblocks every step of the way. And they've made your life much more difficult to navigate a Disney vacation. And that to me is one of the reasons, the main reason, honestly, why I'm going to give up my annual pass, because I still, like you said, I still will go, but I'm just not going to go as often, because for me to maintain that Disney feel, the only way to do that is to mold my trips and kind of de-stress them as much as possible. Because if you were to basically just say, I'm just going to go to Disney like the old days, you would have a meltdown by the 3rd or 4th day. And that's why you see so many parents who get frustrated with Disney and Disney trips in general, and swear that they'll never go back, because, and you and I know people who have told us, oh, you know, I'm not doing a Disney vacation. It's too stressful. I need a vacation from my vacation.
Yep, all the time.
Yeah, and the reason for that is because those folks, unfortunately, don't have the ability like you and I do to go back multiple times a year and maybe mold a trip so that you avoid all of those stressful situations. And now, for me, my avoidance of those situations is actually cutting down on how much money I am spending there.
Yep.
And now the question comes into play: is Disney going to feel that in their pockets?
Only time's going to tell.
I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I mean, right now they're still raking in the money and the attendance, and maybe the park reservation system is working for them. I honestly think that eventually, I don't know if it's going to change anytime soon. Maybe it will. My personal opinion is I think they're going to probably keep that for a while, because as we discussed, it helps with the flows of the crowds, and it also helps them budget where they need to put cast members food on a daily basis, and including food. Yep. Correct. So, you know, speaking of food, so now we can segue into our
happy place,
our dining review of Le Cellier. So we both dined at Le Cellier back in April, and Ken and I, that is actually,
Whoop.
if it's not
actually
one of our top, if it's not our top restaurant, it's one of our top restaurants at Disney World. And Ken, you go ahead and talk a little bit about the meal that you had and how much you enjoy it.
Yeah, since I started going to Disney World with you back about 8-9 years ago now, and it was one of the first places you took us to was Le Cellier over in Epcot. I'm not a seafood person, so I'm a meat and potatoes kind of guy. And I fell in love with Le Cellier from the moment I first dined there. The ambiance, which I love that word. You know, you're sitting in a wine cellar of a castle, and if you are a couple of two, it's not always the best place to dine. I will say that, because now with the social distancing gone, the seating is back to normal, and that's actually one thing I missed from the COVID era, because you didn't have to have someone sitting directly. When you're sitting as a couple of two, unless you get lucky, I can literally reach my arm out and touch the shoulder of he or she sitting next to me. That's how close they are. That's how close you are to your neighbors there. However, it is arguably my favorite place to dine on property. I think their meals, their preparation, their service, their decor, everything is top notch. Their fillets are the best fillets I've had anywhere, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I always have to book, and my family loves eating there too, except when we were there back in January and they actually got rid of it because we all laughed when we went in April. They had a special kind of macaroni and cheese there, and it was, what was it, Walt? Do you remember what it was? It was,
I think it was the truffle mac and cheese.
oh yeah, but I think it had some blue cheese in it. Well, I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, they had blue cheese in it, yes.
That was pure battery acid. Oh my God. That was, for me to say anything really bad about it, but myself and my daughter could not stomach it in January. And my mother-in-law and our mother-in-law and my wife loved it. So when we went back in April, funny story, they asked for it and they discontinued it off the menu because the waitress said that most people did not like it. And so the chef decided to go back to the regular mac and cheese, which was average. But if you're looking for, if you're a filet guy or girl, definitely go to Epcot and try Le Cellier if you have not, because it is my favorite steak on property and arguably my favorite place to go each and every time we go. Sometimes we even dine there twice. That's how much we like it. Go ahead, Walt, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with you. I've had the steak at California Grill, the filet rather. I've had the filet at Steakhouse 71. Mm-hmm. I've had the filet at
Yachtsman?
Not the Yachtsman.
Okay.
But I will tell you that at those three places, the Le Cellier, I don't know why. I don't know if Le Cellier is getting their filet from a different distributor. You would think they all get it from the same place, but
they don't.
I guess they don't, because it's not the same. And again, what makes the Le Cellier filet amazing is the risotto that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's a mushroom. I think it's a mushroom risotto.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not mistaken. I'm going to have to ask Beth that because she's the expert on the the risotto. But it is outstanding. The appetizers are also very good.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they have mussels there on the menu, and I've had their salad. I've had their lobster bisque. I'm sorry, not the lobster bisque. It's a
isn't it the bacon cheddar?
Cheddar?
Yeah, it's the bacon cheddar.
Bacon cheddar.
So,
yes,
yep.
The bacon cheddar, which is also very good.
Yes, it is.
So it's the overall dining experience. The only thing, like you pointed out, that's lacking is the seating.
Yes.
If you are a couple and you're going to have to ask for a table that is less, maybe like a booth table, which they have in the back of the restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not sitting at arm's length away from someone. You're right. It is your best bet is to try to get a group of at least 3 or 4 people
Yes.
together to go to Le Cellier, because then you have your own table. You're fine. But if you're at a table for 2, they're squeezing you in there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the case at most EPCOT restaurants, and I've had that experience even at a few resort restaurants. So, but overall, I think Le Cellier is definitely a place to stop. It's also a good place to stop for food and wine, because their little pavilion that they have outside also does have a miniature version of the
Yes.
filet, which is also very good if you're not in the mood to go in for a sit-down dining experience. So I would definitely recommend
And
that.
I checked the menu. Food
we also...
Good. I was just going to say real quick, I checked the
sorry,
menu because Food and Wine starts this week. And actually, by the time our episode airs, Food and Wine will have begun in EPCOT. But I did check the menu, and yeah, the menu stayed the same for Le Cellier Canada. So you can get your small little filet and the bacon cheddar as well. So definitely check it out if you're down there for it. Go ahead, Walt. I'm sorry.
That's definitely worth a stop there.
Mm-hmm. Were you saying anything else? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, we were if we could let's do a real quick. We were going to do Cape May Cafe. We can kind of we don't want to drag on too long on that one. But we also did for my wife's birthday in April, we all ate breakfast at the Cape May Cafe, and I think overall everyone had a very good experience there. My our mother-in-law really enjoyed it. And if Pat enjoyed it, then it's got to be good. So I think, I don't know if you have any. Do you have any photos that you?
Yeah. So anybody who's watching over on YouTube, we did play Le Cellier, but I hit the button by accident and it just popped up, so I just let it go, and everyone watching you saw it. But yeah, as of right now, if you're watching on YouTube, we have a little pop up of Cape May Cafe breakfast as well. You are right, though. It was good. And I think it was Cape May Cafe. Correct me if I'm wrong, Walt. $25 a person for the breakfast buffet. I believe it was $25.
Correct. Which is one of the things that I really you can't understate the value at Cape May. I believe it's the cheapest buffet breakfast on property. I think there's one other one that might be like 30 or 35. But they are by far the cheapest one, and the overall variety of what you get is outstanding. Everything's fresh. Those crumb cakes were delicious that you're seeing there.
Oh yeah.
And again, if you go there for breakfast, you can actually, depending on how much you can stomach, you can pretty much skip. You might be able to skip lunch, because if you have a big enough breakfast, or you can even have a light lunch. So you're really looking at a $50. For 2 people, it's $50.
Can't go wrong at Disney. For
some people might say, "Wow, yeah." People might say, "Well, that's a lot," but if you really price it out, it's really not that bad, because bounty platters are around, I think, $11 or $12 now. So you're looking at 2 bounty platters is well over $20 for 2 people, and this is all you can eat. So there's a way more variety than a bounty platter. So thumbs up for me on Cape May Cafe. If you have a family that that's definitely worth it as well. If it's just a couple or 2 or 3 people, it's still worth going there for breakfast. It's a very good a place, and there's no character dining there. So if you're not into the characters, and you just want to have a buffet breakfast, that's a really good place to go.
Well, I got to say, because I'm going back, and in our next episode, we'll talk more about it. I'm going for a short trip in late August, and we're staying over at the boardwalk, and I definitely want So this was kind of a last minute trip because if you people originally remember, we were supposed to go to Hilton Head, and then we changed it and we're going to Disney for a handful of days. But I'm definitely going to try and at least get one day again at Cape May Cafe for breakfast because I really enjoyed it. And like Walt said, it's all you can eat for $25 a person. You can't go wrong. So, Walt, what do you think? Before we wrap up, I think we have time to do, and we both agree on this, of what we currently miss at Walt Disney World. And I'm going to let you go because you have actually experienced this before. So,
yeah, my thing that I miss, and I miss it a lot actually, even though it's kind of not in the season for it, is the Osborne Family Lights Spectacular at Hollywood Studios. It was basically, which now does no longer exist, is what was the name of the street there?
Oh, I can't remember it off the top of my head. But it was in the back lot.
It was near the back lot.
Yes.
Yeah, it was near the back lot, but I think it was I'm not sure if it was Fifth Ave. It was a New York street that was there, and it was they were just facades of buildings. And at Christmas they would decorate it with lights, and if you go on YouTube, you can find plenty of videos on it to see what it actually looked like. It was an amazing experience. There were lights on all of the buildings. They would have snow machines where you'd have the fake snow, and it was just it was they would also sync it up to music, so you would have the lights flash to whatever particular Christmas song that they were playing at the time, which really made it a fun experience. And people would just mingle in that area and just take pictures. And it was just overall one of those things that and again, I realize why they did away with it, because they obviously had to build Toy Story land there, and things evolve, but things shouldn't go away permanently.
They could have found another spot.
Should be able to, you should be able to brainstorm and think of a different place to put something like that, and that goes for a lot of other things at Disney, but for that particular Light Spectacular show, it's something that I really, really miss. Now, I know that you didn't experience it personally, but
I never experienced it personally, and we went on a trip together. It was probably 2014. It was later in the year, and we went to Hollywood Studios, and Walter and his wife took us back there, and everything, all the decorations were up for it. Even the Osborne sign that draped across the fake road. But we never got to see it because I think we missed it by about a week. But you told me all about it, so I went home, I checked it out on YouTube, and it was awesome. Even just watching it on TV, it was awesome. And then I think it was the next year or two or so is when they got rid of it. And I didn't make it down for the holidays until much later. So unfortunately, I never got to see it.
Started, they took it down.
They took it all down. So I would love to see a version of that. Like even now, and I know we're wrapping, but even with the 50th anniversary, like they're not putting the lights, the icicles on Magic Kingdom on the castle either. So that's something else that you're not getting. And we haven't had it since the pandemic. And now you're into the 50th anniversary, which is going for 18 months. So, but that's something I would like to see come back and to actually experience it in person, because I'm a huge Christmas guy. So that was our Christmas in July, everybody.
I know, especially you would have enjoyed it because of I know what a huge Christmas fan you are. So
that's
real quick. I one of the things I did want to mention before we wrap up is one plus I will say that Disney has done really, really well recently is the lighting on Spaceship Earth and different lighting designs that they've had on Spaceship Earth. it's something that I've really enjoyed. I didn't think initially I was going to like it as much as I do. But on both of the most recent trips I've been on, I took a lot of pictures of the different colors and lights on the ball. And it really, really makes for some really great photography, especially obviously at night, because it really gives you different perspectives of the ball, of Spaceship Earth. I keep calling it the ball.
Yeah, we all do it.
And it's just one of those things that I have to say they've done. I will give them a thumbs up on that, and they've something that they've done very well. I'm glad that it's been an addition to EPCOT that I think has definitely been welcomed.
I couldn't agree more, Walt. I couldn't agree more, and I'm looking forward to it. I know they do a couple shows a night on it, and they're only several minutes, but I definitely want to check that out in late August when I go, because I've seen footage of it, a lot of people doing live streams, and like you said, even when we were in the parks recently, it's, very tastefully done, and they have done an excellent job with that. So, yes, I agree with you 100%. So, what do you think? Good place to wrap?
Yeah, this is a good place to wrap up.
Very good show. It was a good discussion.
Yep.
It was a good discussion, and
good conversation.
So, all right, folks, that's going to do it.
Hopefully we won't get a lot of negative feedback from it.
Well, let us know in the comments on YouTube. Send us a message over on Instagram if you feel differently, because we'd love to know. We really do.
Yep.
So,
absolutely.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for this episode of the Disney Resorts Podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. For Walt Ramirez, I'm Kenny Hayes. Take care, everybody.
Have a good night.